Dear friends, welcome to this week's virtual Drasha. This week we have the incredible privilege to read Parshas Bamidbar. And as the name of the Parsha suggests, we spend a significant amount of time focusing on the Jewish existence in the desert. And the Torah goes out of its way first to highlight a census, counting us. Afterwards, the Torah goes into great detail about the encampment of Klal Yisrael. Remember, the Mishkan was in the middle of the camp, and the tribes were arranged in very specific order, by the tzivoy, by the command of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, around that central Mishkan focal point. Whenever we talk about the tribes, there's always one tribe who kind of stands alone, and that's Shevet Levi. Shevet Levi, again, is unique on so many levels. They won't have a tribal portion in the land of Israel, highlighting this singular mission of complete devotion to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shevet Levi are the representatives of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to us, and representatives of us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They have a singular focus in terms of the spiritual realm. And even in the desert, even in the existence in the desert, Shevet Levi also had a unique job. The Torah tells us in Parak Aleph, Pasuk Nun Aleph, chapter 1, verse 51, Ubinsoah HaMishkan, when the Mishkan would move, Yoridu Oso HaLeviim. The Leviim would go ahead and take down the Mishkan. Ubechanos HaMishkan, then when we would camp, Yakimu Oso HaLeviim. The Leviim would put it back. V'hazar HaKarev Yumos. And again, anyone else besides Shevet Levi who attempts to engage in this work, Chas v'Shalom, suffers death at the hands of heaven. And the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh just notes something peculiar in this pasuk. Right? I understand what the pasuk is saying. It's Levi's job to put up the Mishkan and take down the Mishkan. But the way the pasuk phrases it is interesting. I think most of us, I don't know, at least I think if I were writing the pasuk, I would say like this: what was Levi's job? When we would camp and settle in an area, it was Levi's job to put up the Mishkan, right? Ubechanos HaMishkan yakimu oso. When we camp, Levi puts it up. And then when we break camp, when we travel, yoridu osa Levim. The Levim will go ahead and take it down. Just, it seems to flow better that you would first speak about building and then deconstructing afterwards. But that's not how the pasuk is written. The pasuk first speaks about deconstruction. Ubinsoah HaMishkan, when we travel, Yoridu Osa Levim, the Levim will take it down. And then only afterwards does the Torah speak about construction. Ubechanos HaMishkan, when we camp, Yakimu also, they will erect it, or they will go ahead and build it and reconstruct it. So why that order? Why speak about deconstruction before construction? And the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says something so incredibly beautiful. The Levis says that there is a very special avoda that is involved in deconstructing. Sometimes in life, we build something. And what we build, sometimes you build something and perhaps the structure was never really right to begin with. And what I built never really suited my needs. Or other times, what I built was good for when I built it, but then I outgrow it. It could be the same in material building. A person starting out their life, they build a house. So again, maybe I'm a newlywed, Baruch Hashem, maybe I only have a child or two. So again, the 2-bedroom house is more than fine, but then you get older and you need something bigger. The family grows, you need something bigger. The Rebbe says it's the same thing in Ruchnius. Sometimes in spirituality, we build ourselves spiritual constructs. We build ourselves certain structures of the way we live. Right? We have certain hashkafas, certain outlooks, certain isms. We hold ourselves accountable to a certain level. We push ourselves to a certain point, and we create these structures. But sometimes we outgrow these structures. The challenge in life is that all too often we find ourselves residing within spiritual structures and frameworks that we have long outgrown, but yet we're still living there. There's a special and unique avoda, says the Rebbe, to find the courage to deconstruct the things you have built. Not just to build, but to recognize that these things that I built in the past iterations or past stages of my life, which were good then, or maybe they were never good, but they worked back then, now I need something different. I have to find the courage to deconstruct. Shlomo HaMelech writes about this in Koheles. Shlomo HaMelech in Parak Gimel. Parak Gimel is the ace parak, right? There's a time for this, a time for that. And Shlomo HaMelech says, this is in Parak Gimel, Pasuk Beis, chapter 3, verse 2 in Koheles. Ace laledes ve'ace lamos. There is a time to be born and a time to die. Ace la ta'as ve'ace la akor natua. There's a time to plant, and then there is a time to uproot that which you planted. And then again, Shlomo goes on, Eis milchama, eis shalom, there's a time for war, there's a time for peace. And if you look at it, the symmetry makes sense in everything else other than one phrase. There's a time to be born, time to die, right? There's a time for peace, there's a time for war. There's a time to throw stones, a time to gather stones. You would have thought that when Shlomo Melech says, Eis latas, there's a time to plant, what should be the corollary statement? There's a time to harvest, right? You plant and then you harvest. There's a time to plant, but that's not what Shlomo Melech says. He says there's a time to plant, and then there's a time to uproot that which you have planted. What Shlomo Melech is teaching us is something so incredibly amazing. That sometimes in life, we plant things. We create things for ourselves. We create constructs. We create realities for ourselves. But a person has to have enough wisdom, and more important than wisdom, courage, to be able to recognize that sometimes the things that I have planted are not going to get me where I need to get to in life. And so I need to uproot it. I need to start again. Sometimes the things that I built for myself, the constructs that I built for myself, they're fine, but they're not going to get me where I need to get to. And you have to find the courage, sometimes Shlomo Melech says, not to harvest what you planted, to uproot it. Because harvesting means I planted it, and now Baruch Hashem, it grew, it's perfect, it's ready, and now I'm gonna enjoy it. Shlomo Melech says, sometimes you plant something and then you realize after you planted it, it's not right. This is not the ideal for me. I need something different. I need something bigger. I need something better. I need something grander or holier. And then the shaila is, what do you do in that moment? Do you say, oh, well, you know what? I planted it already. So let's just leave it alone. Or say, no, I'm going to find the courage to uproot because I need to plant something else. Says the Rebbe, says Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, sometimes the greatest spiritual act of heroism is to be able to identify something that is not working in life and uproot it to pave the way for something better. And says the Rebbe, that's the pshat, ultimately, in what the pasuk is telling us by the Leviim. What does the pasuk say by Shevet Levi? O bin soah hamishkan. This is incredible. Listen to the metaphor. Sometimes bin soah means if you want to travel. If I want to get myself from point A to point B, so what do I have to do, right? None of us want to stay stationary in life, right? The hardest thing is that I want to stay stationary, right? We're matter. Man is made up of matter. And matter is naturally at rest until it is acted upon. So on one hand, all I want to do is be left alone and stay in place. That's what my body wants. My neshama wants constant movement. So how do you get yourself from point A to point B? So Mishkan, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you move your personalistic Mishkan from where I am now to where I want to be? Yoridu also Halavim. I have to identify what are the things that need to be deconstructed, because sometimes dynamic activity or dynamic growth in life doesn't even come from things that you do, but it comes from taking down the constructs that are holding me back. It comes from identifying the things that are the structures I built long ago. Maybe they worked long ago, maybe they didn't work long ago, but here's one thing I know, they don't work now. So will I find the courage to deconstruct it? And if I can do that, if I can find the courage to take down the things that I've built in the past, if I can find the courage, like Shlomo Melech says, to uproot the things that I have planted, then ultimately, bin soah hamishkan, I'll be able to move myself. I'll be able to move myself, ultimately, again, from where I am now to where I want to be. Throughout the journey of life, it is so easy to become set in our ways. We talk a certain way, we act a certain way, we behave a certain way. We have predictable responses to all of life's situations. And we almost become a little bit of or create for ourselves a mechanistic, robotic lifestyle. Day in and day out. And again, it could be good. It could be good. It could be fine. Like we spoke about last week. It could be fine. It could be fine. But at the end of the day, it's also important to know that I may have created for myself certain life mechanisms and frameworks, right? I may have structured certain relationships, whether it's my marriage or my children or with HaKadosh Baruch Hu or with myself. And those structures that I have built maybe were good for me at a different stage of life, but they're not working for me now. Do I have the courage to knock it down and start over? Do I have the courage to go ahead and uproot that which I have planted? Not because what I've planted is bad, but because it's not going to get me where I need to get to. Imagine for a moment, Chevra, if we took a few moments and did a little introspection, a little hisbodedus, a little inward investigation, and asked ourselves, what are the frameworks and what are the structures, personalistic frameworks and structures that are outdated, anachronistic, no longer helpful for who and what I want to be? What are the behaviors that maybe I needed at a different stage of life, but now are no longer helping to advance my personalistic cause? And after I identify them, having the courage to say, you know what? I want to move myself. But if I want to move myself from where I am now to where I know I could be, Yoridu Oso Halavim. I have to become a Levi, and I have to find the courage to deconstruct. I have to find the courage, like Shlomo Melech says, to identify the things that I planted, because maybe they were a good idea when I planted it long ago, but now I have to uproot it. What are the midos? What are the approaches? What are the hashkafas? What are the isms? What are the behaviors? What are the things that may have worked once upon a time, but don't work anymore now? And if I could summon up that Levitic strength and deconstruct those structures that no longer work, then I could clear the ground. Then my life becomes fertile soil to be able to begin to build something new, beautiful, and incredible. This is the avodah of the Leviim, but it's the avodah for all of us. And what a profound message, especially as we enter into the Yom Tov of Shavuos, because Shavuos represents a renewal of our covenantal relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a new start. It's virgin soil. Everything is reset. When we stand for Aseres HaDibros on B'Shal Tov Mitzlachas, the first day of Shavuos, on Monday morning, we are re-receiving the Torah. We are recreating our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if in these days leading up to that beautiful Yom Tov, I identify all of the structures that are antiquated or no longer useful, and find the courage to knock them down, then I go into Shavuos with an open field, and there's no telling what I can accomplish. May we be Zochem Yirtzeh Hashem to find the Levitic courage to knock down and to uproot the things that are holding us back, the structures that no longer work. And may we be Zochem Yirtzeh Hashem to enter into the Yom Tov of Shavuos ready to build something new. Wishing everyone a good night of Shabbos, a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh, and an uplifting Yom Tov of Shavuos.